I remember the moment we both were there on stage in the Netherlands, in Breda. And you asked me some questions about how kids are raised up in, I don't call them high society. I call them actually the most lowest societies you can have on this planet. But most of the people think they are the highest powers on Earth. And that's because of they are holding actually most of the assets of this world, most of the property. They own actually the whole world now, nearly. It's just a few parts who are not theirs. It's like, let's say the 99.99% they own now. And that started a long time ago. But we have this talk on stage about children who are born in this, well, old world powerful families. And it's not only my story, it's also the story of them, because they all were born, and on the moment they were born, like me, like all the other children on Earth, there was nothing wrong. It was fine. It was not that you come in this planet and you start to play with another child, or you say, no, you're a Muslim, I don't play with you. That bullshit is coming up later on in our lives, that we start to separate us from each other. But in the beginning, when we come from the source of light, we are all connected, and we all are a sort of unity and diversity. But to get people in track of the old powerful system, to be getting a real career in the old world, like your father or mother are the most powerful ones on this planet who decide to destroy a country or not, they have to prepare you for this job, for this role. And this kind of preparing was more or less the same like I was prepared. In my case, it was not really done on purpose, because my father didn't have plans for me, because he was not one of the rulers of this planet. But because of his damage, he was damaged as well before the war and during the Second World War. So a damaged child becoming a father, doing actually the same, also damaging me. And that was so heavily that I'm in the position now to confirm, because of my own experience in life, because my first 11 years of my youth were really destroying the child. My child was becoming the inner child, completely protected in a heavy bunker, and a bunker who even can survive atomic wars. That's how far you become inside of yourself, locked up, developing a sub-person who is not giving any shit about life on this planet, actually having real joy to destroy life on this planet. And that's all because of being in a program of destruction from the beginning of your life till later on. And for me, it was till my 11th. But later on, I jumped now a bit forwards. Later on, when I was in the position in my first life, the last 5 years of my first life, it ended in the end of 1994. The last 5 years, when I was in the real position to get in the financial world in the highest positions to serve them, the powers that be, the old powers, I was becoming friends with not all of them, but some of them. And when you become friends with one of your clients, you start to recognize each other based on the stories we both share about our youth. I didn't say it now, but I get it already in my body, all these vibrations, because it's very heavy, this kind of things. In the so-called elite, because they are not elite, but how to call them, the powers that be. If they get children, sometimes the first one is sacrificed for more power. And if they don't do this, the children they raise up, they put them, for example, in electric caves to break them, to break the child in all the way they can. This is in the system of being trained to be later on one of the most powerful persons on this planet. First, they break you down, and they do it from the beginning. And they were doing it with me too, but separate from the real powers. But it's unbelievable, because sometimes people are saying, oh, the powers in this planet, they are reptilians. No. I know the stories, but they are not reptilians. They are so cold-blooded, they are so in the freezer because they were trained that way, like they did with me, with my father and my family situation. They trained me to be the coldest one on earth, with my consciousness in the freezer, and not on 18 degrees, but on 100 degrees. So when I was coming out of this hell, this family situation, completely beaten up, tortured, emotional, physical, whatever, well, think about real horrible things and you get more or less there. For them, the powers on this planet is the same story. And it's not funny, but the most funny part of this all is that the parents who are doing this with the children, they are convinced, really convinced, that they love their children and they are giving the best they can to prepare them for their role in the future. They really love their children. So if you're not used to it, it's completely crazy to hear this and to think about what I'm saying. Compare it with this. If you are a father and a mother and you get children, in my first life I did the same. You get this vaccines program and you love your children and you are not aware, and you give your children the vaccines because you are doing the best for your child. In the meanwhile, that's in my second life, I become aware of the prescriptions for doctors downloaded by the healthcare division of European Union. And then if you read the descriptions where the medics access to have, and you read all the additives who are in these vaccines, then you become aware, like, oh my God, I don't want to give my children this anymore. So with this example, I want to make clear that if you don't know better, you really believe you're giving your child the best you can. And with the vaccines, in my first life, with my first two children, I gave them. And their immune system is damaged. They're so-called healthy, but not really healthy. If I compare my first two children with my last two children, wow, big difference in the immune system. But that's just an example of what I'm talking about. If it's about the powers who are where I was working for, and with some I become friends, I mean, they were going through the same hell or worse than I did. And this is the only reason why they are able, like I was, to destroy life on Earth. Really doesn't, we didn't care about the people in general. They were products, they were trash, they were just use them, fuck them, and throw it away. That's human people. And in my first life, when I came out of my youth, because when I was 9, there was an organization who is watching children, a sort of childcare organizations. They noticed through school that everything was going really, really bad for me. And there was an investigation, and then they discover all these horrible things. So they put me out of the family in a place where they take care of people, children in this case, who are heavily damaged by child abuse and sacrifice rituals and all horrible things. So I was coming, when I was 9, I came in a Catholic, it was organized by Catholics, center to protect the child against all the violence of the past. And guess what? There it was actually that much of hell that I really start to cry for my father and mother, because there it was normal to abuse the children, and this was done by nuns and by brothers, so male and female, and they used the available children, and I was included. And in the beginning, you really don't know what is happening with you, and you start screaming for your father, who was a monster, and your mother. And the crazy thing about that is it damaged you completely, again, because the first year was hell, but you start to discover sometimes things are also pleasant. So then you get completely mixed up because you're forced to be in sexual rituals and all kind of crazy things. Some people were wearing masks because they also invited guests. Some were not with masks. Later on, when you are adult, sometimes you recognize these powerful people who are joining this kind of rituals and sexual abuse. It's all mixed up. So when I was released after my 11th, when my mother was out of a divorce, I was already a completely adult, and my child was completely locked up, like I shared before, in a big bunker. So there he is, Ronald, 12 years old, coming home to mother who is just divorced, still a mess because she was also very much suffering, not having enough food on the table. And then I start my career to be independent and arranging money. And that was my start. And I'm not telling this like an excuse that if you become criminal, that if you have a rough youth, then you have a big and huge excuse to be criminal. No, it's not an excuse. It was my decision to choose that path. I'm responsible for that. That was coming up in the period between 9 and 11. All these thoughts and decisions were made in that period. When I was coming out, 12, it was really starting to do it. Because the situation of my mother was also an excuse, like she didn't have a lot of money and we have some family support, but I started already stealing food in shops and finding money to get a bit of extra support. But yes, you're right. The real turn in this, the hate, because that was all in between 9 and 11, when I have all these child abuse things, these sexual things. But to practice your decisions was when I was 12. And yes, I hated actually, or nearly everyone on this planet, especially the adults. It was not in the case with my mother, but even with my mother, I was building up already a sort of distance. Like if she was coming too near to me, I start already to go in a sort of defense. So yes, in that period, the blueprint was already completely clear. I became a hater of the human race. And my final goal was to destroy everything, included myself, of course. That was my main goal. And the way to this main goal was to become the most rich and powerful person on this planet, because if you are the most rich and powerful person on this planet, you can push the buttons to destroy. So yes, in a nutshell, that's the first part of my youth. The rest after it is I can share, of course, too, like how I became from my 12 till nearly 33, because 94 I was still 32. But I mean, the 20 years I was building up myself with this goal, I nearly managed it. Nearly. I was close. Because I was really in the last 5 years, I was really on my way, and I'm getting more and more power. Then, unfortunately, I'm talking now if I'm in my first life, because then it was unfortunately, they start to invite me for something who really was cracking me on that moment. And that was that in being invited. I was also in the Church of Satan, and they were worshiping Lucifer. And for me, it was really a joke, but afterwards I know it was not a joke, this whole thing. But when they made this invitation, and the first time I put this in the world, wow, it was like a volcano, like a relief, but the emotions, everything was coming out. The first time I was sharing this in my life, it was really huge in public. That was about the invitation to sacrifice children. That was really, that was, and I mean, wow. That was my breaking point in my career. It was not my turning point, but it was my breaking point, because I couldn't fulfill my role anymore. I was falling apart step by step. But between the 12 and the 32 is a huge story, of course, of things, what I did in my life to become a top criminal, serving the big money for the top players of this world. Everything, I mean, you know what it was? Everything was bad. Everything was evil. I believed all the bad things, the black things, the evil things, the dark things, however you want to call it, is in the human themselves. So it was including me, because I was not better than anyone else. So I was actually blaming myself as well for all the horror. Of course, afterwards, I can look at it completely different, but it's the first life. I'm now in the first life, so I'm talking out of the first life. It's now sometimes a bit difficult because, of course, in my second life, after my rebirth, I become more and more aware. My consciousness was growing. So the old part was mixed with the new part. And then afterwards, of course, you understand that there was nothing to blame yourself. Of course, you made maybe the wrong decisions, but you get a bit of compassion with yourself. You can forgive yourself as well. Like I was also forgiven by the people who I met afterwards. Also in my second life, I start to meet people who are becoming direct or indirect a victim of my actions in my first life. And that's more than coincidence. I was once with a friend in a dinner, and he had a new girlfriend. And we were talking about my work when we dropped the Italian lira as an attack to attack the economy of Italia, because we got a lot of bets on it, on the destruction, temporary destruction. And his new girlfriend told me that she still knows the period I was doing that, because her family and the family company was completely destroyed by the actions I did. And so many years later, you get through one of your friends who has a new girlfriend, you get confronted with the other side, the victims of your actions. This is beyond coincidence. How is this possible? I was facing this many times. Maybe I did too much destruction. I don't know. That it's not so absurd to meet your victims of the past, but for me it was really like, wow, how is this possible? And this was not once. When I was 12 and starting to do this little arrangements to get enough food on the table, I was already collecting, for example, all the items of World War Number 2 in that period, so that is in the 70s. I was collecting this kind of things, and especially the things from the Germans, because they were of the most value. And in that period, I also dig in the country to find old war ammunition and all those kind of things. So I start to collect things of the Second World War. And then on flea markets, I start buying and selling this kind of items. I also start to steal out of shops cartoons. And then I had 100 cartoons to sell on the flea market. I was stealing a lot of toy things. You know, I was just stealing the whole year in shops everywhere, and nobody was catching me. And I collect a lot of things to sell on the flea markets. And as a child, of course, so innocent, you get away with it. And nobody was paying attention of what I was arranging, because I did it already in the shadow. I also, in springtime, I cut in the cities and in the places where I lived, in the villages, when the flowers were coming up in general. You have these fields where the people from City Hall, they have it in the public service to have all the, well, flowers, the flowers who are coming up in the public gardens. And I was cutting them all. You know, when the flowers were coming up, I cut them all. So it was always a mystery where the flowers were going, but I cut them all and put them in a small bouquet. And I was going ding dong to the doors, ding dong. Do you want to sell? Do you want to buy this nice flowers for the good goals I was representing? Like, you know, just imagine something like the poor kids of the third world or whatever. But the good goal was myself. Mm. So that I can go on for hours, of course, but this was just the beginning. Then, when I was 14, I think more or less 14, I start to copy money and make money myself. So I put a Dutch bill, I put it on the window, and then I put a blanco white paper over it, and with pencils, color pencils, I start drawing every detail of this billiard. And it took me several days to create, for example, 25 guilders on my own. And they were so nice and so good copied, handmade. I gave them to my mother, and she was sometimes going out with another friend to a bar. So it was a bit shady, dark. And she gave it to the barman to buy their drinks. And they accepted, because it was so good of quality. She didn't do it. She called the bartender back like, ho, 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 didn't you notice? And then, of course, he was putting it through a light and discovered there was no watermark. So for her, it was just a joke and saying, yeah, my son is making these kind of things. So for her, it was completely innocent, but not for me, not at all. Because I gave them out myself as well, you know. So I create my own money and gave it out in shops. But I was also on school because that was also needed. And most of the time, because of my messy life, I was kicked out of the class. But when I have the exams, I always pay the best students money. So when the exams were there, I just sit near the bright guys, the ones who were really studying, and I paid them, and I copied the answers who are needed to have a good number in your exams. So this is how I arranged all my diplomas when in my youth. Then I have to go to the military. That was by law arranged in Holland, but I arranged that also in a different way, like becoming a professional soldier in a training to become Unteroffizier. What is in English? It's not the officer, but the one between. So choosing this path, I was called for a tour. I was called for a tour that was arranged by law. But to go in a path of going for professional, you get higher paid already, although you're still going for your tour, but applying for professional, you get already higher paid. Then I choose also to be placed in abroad, not in Holland, but in Germany, in a NATO camp with Canadians and English, and so you get extra paid. So I was always looking for the money, how I get more and more paid. And then I get this tax-free cigarettes and liquors, alcohol, and all that very cheap tax-free things available. And I start to buy them and transport them illegal over the borders to Holland to sell it to friends and family because they really want to buy it because it was cheaper than they have to buy it in Holland. So even in the military and after the military, I was starting to be quite involved in illegal transport, smuggling, tax-free cigarettes and alcohol, liquors. But when I came out of the army, I started also to register myself in the Chamber of Commerce with car dealing, because I want to explain or to cover my real life. Because when I was in the army, I could explain, hey, I have my high salary because I'm so-called in training for professional military. I'm abroad, so I get all these risk payments. So I could explain how I get all this money. Also a bit out of, well, these illegal things. But out of the army, I had to register myself officially with car dealing. And later also with import-export, and even with a fashion line for for ladies. It was for ladies. We did some fashion, and we did it from Istanbul. But all this import-export, this car dealing, and even this lady fashion line, who was distributed to franchise companies, was all cover up. Of course it made money, but the real money was coming from the underworld, the gray world, the black world, the illegal trading I did, because it started with the smuggling, but you know, before you know, you get also weapons offered, you get drugs offered, you get all the things who are available in this in the black community or in the criminal communities. So step by step, you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you're good in the things you're doing, the circles are not that huge. So you're starting to climb, your start to rise. And when I was around 25, I get already jobs offered by secret services, also from Russia. And of course, now we have these anti-campaigns on Russia. So when I'm saying Russia, whoa, another one, you see, Russians are bad. No, they are not bad at all. It's inside of the humans. And in that time, when I was 25, I get jobs offered to dump in the international market American dollars. But these American dollars were not printed in America by the Federal Reserve. They were printed in the East. And they were distributed through Russia, through the secret services, to top criminals or criminals who have great ambitions to drop them in trades. Like when you have, in my case, I had army dealers. So arm dealers, so weapon dealers, drugs dealers who are in bigger quantity dealing, and they were able to buy this 100% top quality American dollars from us with discount. And of course, I had my commission too, because between the buying and selling, there was commission for me too. And this is the way how we get millions of millions and later higher amount of monies. We get it in the market through the illegal circuit of arm dealers, weapon dealers, and drugs dealers, and terrorist organizations. All this, well, not highest, but quite some amount of money flow. I get involved of this as well, and later on you get from other secret services the same story. You get also a lot of drugs and other things offered. So you're climbing up the ladder, and if you succeed in all the missions you do, like, okay, he deserves a medal, he is doing this job because it takes a lot of guts, and you have your nerve system has to be top. It's high level playing already, but still it was low level, the thing, if you compare it with the last 5 years. This year I was invited by the International Tribune of Natural Justice in London to testify about human trafficking, child trafficking, organ harvesting organs. So organ trafficking, child abuse, child sacrifice, all the things were there. And the third day, when I was actually leaving to catch my plane, I get in contact with someone who was, in the time I was involved with this top quality dollars, because the quality of these dollars was actually better than the original ones from America. Yeah, no, it was really, it was only, the Americans discovered it only by the numbers, the serial numbers. That's how they, because they have a registration of the serial numbers of their own prints. So when they get huge amounts of so new, brand new, better dollars than they have themselves, then they start to become aware of this attack, because the reason behind this was, was all economic warfare. It's economic warfare. And also the Americans were doing the same with the ruble against the Russians. So in this level, all the countries are printing the currencies of other countries to attack them in an economic way. But I didn't care about this. The destruction was for me enough, and making money as well. I was only interested in destruction and making money. They didn't succeed, by the way. I mean, America is still there, Russia is still there, Iran is still there. All the countries are still there, but the motivation you have behind it is, okay, now we have a chance. If I was putting the American dollar on the market, of course you see a big power, and a big power can be destroyed if you have enough extra money on the market. You get a hyperinflation, you get crisis, and you get a country on their knees. I knew that already from that time. It was like you have a high quality wine. If you put in enough water, the value of the wine is gone. It doesn't taste well anymore, and you can't sell it anymore. And that's what you create with more money in the market than registered and given out by the printing of America themselves. You destroy, in the end, you destroy a country. And the funny part afterwards is, of course, that the Americans themselves are printing after they let the gold standard going in the period of Nixon. It was around 73 or 72, 73, 74 in the last century. When they leave this gold standard and they step in this connection with the petrodollar, they started themselves to print unlimited money in dollars. So they are bringing their own dollar in inflation, more inflation. I mean, the whole value of the dollar, if you compare it with 100 years ago, it's only now 1% left of the value they had 100 years ago. So now they are destroying themselves. So there is no need anymore of economic attacks on the dollar, but it was in that time I'm talking about. We were still in the cash, because now everything is digital. I think now only 3% of the whole cash worldwide, 3% is still cash, 97% is digital. And the time I was working, most of money was still cash. Truckloads of cash. It was normal for us to, I mean, for us, there was no, I mean, if you are working with such a lot of money, you're not impressed anymore. It's just old paper. Like you have some people are collecting old newspapers to sell it for the price in kilos of old paper. For us, money was the same. It's nothing. It is nothing, but that day it was really, so yeah. The more, and this sounds maybe horrible, the more I get involved, the more, the higher I was coming, the better it was. You know, if you start as a criminal, you become, in the beginning, paranoid, because you can't trust nobody. In the low levels, it's really like the society I know now. The society I know now are full of snakes. There are not much people who are from the straight from the beginning. Most of the people, they hide. I'm not saying that nobody is honest, but you know, if you meet someone, you never know. That's the world we live in. We are all damaged and afraid, so you don't show yourself in the beginning. So the world of snakes is in the low levels of criminality as well. But the farther you climb in the ladder, the better it gets. More clear appointments, more honesty. So when I was talking about coming in the high regions, the last 5 years, when I get also access to the trading markets worldwide, and we arranged this to get a seat in Brussels, and it was arranged by offshores, so your name is not involved. You just buy the offshore and you have the license to be in the trading market, and you always use yourself puppets to make the real deals on the floor. But when I was coming in the last 5 years, I really start to get friends, really friends, like buddies, because we were on the same, we have the same attitude, we have the same mentality, we have the same emotions, the same goals. It was really like coming home. And this is how I also was becoming with some of them friends and getting the deeper stories of themselves, of the youth. So, and this is also a story of hope, because if you start to have the insights about the most powerful people on this planet, and how damaged they are and how empty they are, because we were empty. When you were giving me the question about you lose the value of money, yes, we did. Sometimes, to shock the working class, I go in a bar where the people who are just coming from their work, working maybe for 1,000 guilders a month, and they were there on the bar, and we come in, I just take out 1,000 guilders, I take a lighter to start burning my own money, and asking them when they were, they put a cigarette in their mouth and they were searching for a light. And then I offer them, with this burning 1,000 guilders, I offered them a light. Do you need a light? And they, oh, thank you, thank you. And then they get in shock. Like, what are you doing? You're burning 1,000 guilders. I'm working the whole month for this. And then I put it just in the ashtray, like, oh, I don't care. You know, and you have a big laugh about it with your colleagues, to humiliate the people, to shock the people who are working their ass off the whole month for this amount of money, and you put it in their face to light the cigarettes with the salary of 1 month. This is, money was nothing. It was trash. It was toilet paper. Because it was coming in daily. Who cares? Who cares? So the value was not, later on, the money was just a tool to do whatever you want. It's the same with having cars. Then you have 1 car, then you have 2 cars. In the end, you have 3 cars, 5 cars. Whatever you buy, whatever you do, when you're completely empty, like I was, you're only filling up your holes, and it's an impossible thing you're doing, and you need more. So you're starting to serve the monster of greed. You need more, 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 more. And this is why the people who are now in the trillions, they still feel poor. They're still alone. They feel empty. They have nothing. They're scared. Most of them want out, but they're in their own prison. They don't have anything. This is why they are so extreme powerful, so-called powerful, so extreme wealthy. They are the most poor people of this planet. I was one of them, and not in the same level, because I was serving them. I was not one of the masters myself. I was serving them. But this is it. The power structure you're talking about is a structure of a pyramid, really pyramid. And in all the layers, they have involvement in all the layers. So also when we have all this alternative and awaken, I don't want to make people paranoid, but you have really look carefully about what kind of fruits are the trees really giving. So you need to know background. You need to know the people. They're everywhere. One of the documents I still recommend, not because I'm an anti-Semite, because I really love all the human beings on this planet, included the 12 tribes of Israel, the original tribes. The protocols of the elders of Zion gives you really the blueprint of everything I worked for and I was involved. And in this document, you can read how the structure is created everywhere, in universities, in the schools, in our education system, in the politics, whatever you can imagine, it's involved. And they have influence everywhere. In opposition, it doesn't matter. Everywhere they are involved. The point is, the involvement they have most of the time influence people on important positions in organizations. So if you have, for example, Amnesty International, wow, good organization, yes it is. And 99% of the people are really integer. They are honest. They are really working with the heart. But it's the 1% who is sitting just on one of the key positions, who is creating this influence of their higher powers. It's everywhere. So don't get paranoid. What I was sharing was, of course, a mixture of my whole life, because in my first life, I really had a big laugh about this Satanist and this Luciferian and the creator of heaven and earth. All these religions and beliefs were for me bullshit. I really believed the evil is inside of us. But yes, of course, when I start to die and having my first out-of-body experience, not believing in the beginning what was going on with me, but yeah, later on you start to testify about what they were doing with you, and it was confirmed. You know, step by step in my second life, I was becoming more involved in being also myself spiritual, embracing spirituality, studying a lot of holy books, and then a new life starts to appear, and then you start to discover that there is much more than only this, what I call fourth dimension. You have the length, you have the width, you have height, but you have also time. That's the time frame is the fourth dimension. But then you start to discover that we are the cross point of the multi-dimensions and frequencies. And the moment you start to discover that, your awareness starts to grow, and you start to be more and more involved in spirituality, you start to sense that there is really something going on in the other frequencies and dimensions. And then you start also to know that there are low frequency beings, what we call now the fallen angels of the jinns, who are really serving a sort of master. Like you have a creator of heaven and earth, we call that the light manifestation, and you have really a dark manifestation. And that guy or entity is named, for example, as Lucifer. So I just start in my own last 22 years, step by step, I start to discover all the dimensions and frequencies based on my own experience. All the experience I didn't believe myself. So for me now, it's more than a belief, it's really knowing based on practical experience that we really have to face the fact that besides the fourth dimension, we have this interaction with other intellects, other beings. And in my case, it was developing in a positive way, even getting not only a monologue, but also a dialogue. Like sometimes I have a question, and before I speak out the question, the answer is already given. And of course, you can freak out with your brains and thinking like, oh, this is your higher self. But no, in 22 years, I really start to discover that outside of us, there is really more. And the ones I was serving in my first life, I discovered in my second life that it was really existing and that it was all not a joke, including the sacrifice of children. Everything was real. For me, it was the joke, but afterwards, I know it's real. And on the moment we people have a fight, on the moment we hate or we are angry, so-called lower frequency emotions, we are serving the low entities, we are serving the Luciferian organizations because they are sucking our energy. They have their high orgies during wars. That's the best they can get. With wars, blood sacrifice from young men, young girls is the best. They have their orgies. So it's just afterwards in my second life, I start to discover that for me, and it won't have to be for someone else on this planet, but for me, this is real. And I also noticed that there are a lot of organizations and persons in this world, they want us out of this knowing. They are claiming, no, evil doesn't exist, like I did in my first life. No, it's all in ourselves. And if there is something higher, it's you, because you are the God and you have your higher self. They don't want to have you in a knowing that there is more than only us. They don't want it. Because on the moment you start to be aware that there is really something going on in the other frequencies and dimensions, hey, if you know your enemy, you can fight them. You can, and by the way, the power of the Luciferians in the higher frequencies and dimensions is broken. The power is broken. The only existence of their evil on this planet is going through the persons, through our beings. In the old days, and this reminds me of one of the things I later understand what it was. When it's about my old work and the high powers, one of my colleagues once was, well, making sort of mistakes and not really listening. And we were in a meeting with one of the high powers. And he came to my colleague and he put his hand on his chest. And my colleague started to scream and scream and scream. And what was happening, this human, like us, so powerful, got also powers from the other dimensions, because he was making a fire inside of the body of my colleague. That was the reason why he was screaming so much. And from that day, my colleague was so afraid of these powers, because he was really feeling the power they have. It's interdimensional powers. Now in those days, in the days in present, to make you aware of what I'm talking about, we have now a lot of magicians in this world who can lift themselves up, so they know how to block gravity. They can put a mobile phone in a glass without of destroying the glass. They can walk through glass and going vertical down the building. They do all these magic tricks and nobody thinks further than, oh, this is magic. They use this kind of powers. So if you watch now the real magicians of this world, you get already a little bit of a taste of the powers I'm talking about, who are working through humans. This high power humans are then hosts of interdimensional beings. And this is where you get the reptilian stories, when you have this shape-shifting, when they get a bit visible. As long as humans worldwide will think in boxes, and the Dutch people, Holland is really specialized in it, think only in boxes. But as long as we think in boxes instead of we are all brothers and sisters, real humans, we get this separation. We get this separation, and it will continue. And it's all written in the protocols of Zion. When I share this information, just based on, I mean, I'm an unbeliever. I always have to experience myself things like, if a fire is burning, I have to stick once my hand in the fire to say, okay, fire is burning. Before that, I don't believe it. So everything I share is based on practical things, based on my real life, on daily life. And of course, if we get this interview online, of course, there will be a 5% attacking us all about the things we are talking about, because then we are the hippies or the new age or crazy or whatever. Of course, they will ignore it or deny it. And that's the power they play. I can confirm the same emotion and hopelessness, like, oh my God, how do we change this? Because when I was this 3 days in London, it was not only my testimony, it was also the testimony of a Chinese doctor who escaped China. It was about so many people who were really giving horror beyond imagination. So if you get this picture, you're really talking not about human beings, you're talking about a beast, a real beast. And it's, of course, this expression is also a metaphor, because we can find it in the Quran, for example. If you want to know a lot about evil, read the Quran. There are so much explanations and writings about what kind of evil we are facing. It's a multidimensional being, a collective being with a lot of manifestations. But again, the power is broken. They have no power anymore in our 4 dimensions. It's broken. It's done thousands of years ago already. On the moment we, the people, start to unite in diversity, to become one, and not really like one, like everybody's hugging each other. No, see it as a body. Our human body is a perfect model about what we can do worldwide. The thumb won't have to be hugging the thumb. They're connected with each other, and of course they have their function. It's all fine. But on the moment we start to integrate ourselves as human race, as one body in diversity, stand up, creating our own world, the world we want, it will happen. We are the true power, we are the real compassion, the real love, and we have a free will, and the free will be respected, but we have to connect, we have to unite. And I will start to do this. This is my next phase in my life. I will stick out my neck for the next stage. I want to start the United People movement worldwide. I want to write this summer the Declaration of Peace. So everybody who is starting to join and to sign the Declaration of Peace will create a new voice, new power for themselves, because on the moment you agree that we end war and we will start to fulfill the Declaration of Peace, on the moment you sign for it and you put your free will on it, and it will connect it with all the other decisions who also want this new world we create, not the new world order, no, our world of abundancy, then we have something going on. Because if that starts to raise in 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, and we have representatives in our group who want to speak out for all the voices, then we have something going on. Then we can set up our cooperatives worldwide. We can create our new banking system, our new healthcare system, our new energy system. We can create whatever we want. It's in our hands. So this is coming up after the summer. And it will not be a fight. It's based on the free will. This is also a thing if I may, to make clear. When I was expressing it myself, when I learned my final lessons after being jailed in Belgium and breakdown, and when this high-ranking 33-degree masonry made himself visible as being a Masonry 33 degrees because he was just a real good friend of me, and I didn't know that he was this, but he knew that he will die in the future, so he was breaking his own oath, and he loved me so much that he started to share with me the last pieces of the puzzle I needed. From him I learned, and later confirmed from others, to create your own space. And okay, if I start a movement, I'm only one in my own space with my movement. Oh, changing the world, declaration of peace, everybody is laughing. But if people start to join my space, it will become your space as well. And if it's 10, it's a bigger space. Is it 1,000, it's bigger. And so it can grow and grow and grow and grow. And then finally, my, so to speak, creating my own space is shared with everybody, and it can be 7 billion people creating their own space. And that's hard, that's without of fight, and that's without of fear, and without of being harmed, because they don't do anything against it, because it's based on us, the real power, the real beings, the real love, the real free will. This is our ticket out. The only way. You, as long as you support the old system, like voting every 4 years, forget it. You give away your being. You give away your vote. It's no solution there. I really believe we can manage it. I really believe we can manage it. And it's not about me, but someone has to start it.
Yeah.
I mean, if the job is done, I really love to be in the countryside, creating my own permaculture, my own food, living in a community in harmony and peace. That's my main goal. That's my dream. I have no ambitions of being world leader or president of a bank or a movement. No, I'm just doing my job because I am for the children. That's my work. When if I'm representing something, it's the children of this world. That's where I go for. That's my real reason behind everything, because I know how it is to become a child born in this planet. And that has to change completely. We are not only flesh and blood, and that I got out, of course, my own experience here. I mean, if you are out of your body and you're watching yourself, you get really convinced about, okay, you are also spiritual, so you have a higher body. Let's say, call it the body of heaven, your real being. And that's energetic. So on the moment, based on the free will, we start to sign this declaration of peace in an energetic way. It's huge. It's very huge. It's so powerful. It's invisible, but so powerful. It's a declaration who is beyond the 4 dimensions, because we are much more than the 4 dimensions. It will be in all the layers of frequencies of dimensions that you put your free will and declaration of peace on the map. That's so powerful. Even in the old days, I noticed that most of them in the high powers who are so empty, like the rich persons you are talking about now with all the yachts, it's the same. It's all everywhere the same. They are also born like us as a child. And inside of them, the child is still there. And the child is very afraid of this world they created themselves. That's the crazy thing about it. And more we are entering a period that this whole game will be finished. We are now in a phase that everybody on this planet, included them, will start to make a decision. So when they create horror, they will continue creating horror till the people will choose different. They will create now a fake third world war. If they get the chance, they will create it. It will be a fake third world war in the Middle East. They will create it if it's needed. If they can go along with the game they are playing now. But most of them and it's also in the banking world. I'm very connected still with the banking. A lot of them, most of them, want to go out of their own prison they created, but they don't know how, because they are not the heroes who are saying, yeah, I did this and that, and please, please spare me. No, they are very afraid about the people on this planet, because they are, of course, the majority, to be slaughtered in the whole bloodline. So they are very afraid. The only way to get them out, and most of them want out now, because they also need to make a decision, otherwise they end up in places they don't want to be, also not when they're dying, because when you're dead, you're still alive. That's the problem. If you were dying and you were dead, then it's fine. But no, after that, they know they will have to face their own creations. So most of them want to go out. I get more and more signals of it. But as long as the people are staying in the positions they are now, forget it. They don't come out. They prefer to throw themselves from a building, or to get accidents or whatever, or to continue the horror. They want, between now and 10 years, that the whole game is over. That's the maximum. They want in 10 years the game finished. They prefer earlier, but they will raise the pressure and the terror and every fear they can create on humans. Why? To make a decision, to go for it, to be eternal slave, convert as a battery, or liberate yourself as a human being and the whole planet. That's on stake. It's actually in line with the thing I was saying already, that you're right about this banking system. It's also a tool. Like, if you want to create a nice garden, you need some tools to create this nice garden. And this new banking system, this Bee of Joy, is a tool who can serve humanity and make the whole world liberated. Then you don't have this central banking system and BIS anymore. Because if we choose different, we can have a banking system who serve us, and it will be a cooperative system. So we are all members and owners of the cooperative. So we have also, everybody has a vote right. So on the moment someone say, let's invest, because we all together start to invest in a good world, in the world we want. And if someone say, no, let's go for nuclear power, back to the old world because we can make more profit, then of course, based on our votes in the cooperative, we can say, no, no, no. We agreed together all to go for a good stewardship of all life based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, except the rule of United Nations, because United Nations you have to kick out. You need united people. So based on this high standard of ethics and values, we create a banking system and our own currencies who are only a tool for us to serve us and to create the world we want to have together. So it will be a part of the movement, just a tool to create the world and to implement the world we want to see. That's the basics of this banking system. And it will be out of all these nasty mechanisms we have now. Like I said, the central banks, we can get rid of all this old system, and we also will not work with interest anymore. Creating money based on the debt contracts we have now will be gone too. We can base it on our value because we are the only value. To know more about this banking system, you can go in a search machine and you type in Bee of Joy, and you will find the website, and you can read more about the basics of this banking system, who is also just a tool to liberate us. And I was spending the last 7 years of my life to get this tool really created and covered by people, and also now backed up already a bit by money, but we are still in the process of developing. But for me, it's a sort of, okay, now it's ready to continue with the people, and we can guide it a bit more with the other team members, but now it's up to the people to embrace this tool or not. It's up to them, but the tool is available. It's the, you know, if you change the banking system, the financial system, you have the main key for real change worldwide, because this is how they did it with the old world as well. They did it from 1694, and they end up to be the most powerful ones of this planet now, owning nearly everything. We can make this in a reverse, of, by, and for the people. And this is why I created this tool. It's not a goal on its own. My goal is liberation of every human on this planet for the children. They really deserve it. I have the intention to publish a book about my life story, to give the people more and more details about my life. That means I will also dig for photos of my youth, looking for some things worth to show, to give the people more and more a bit of an impression about my life. I will also search for the document where they give me in Belgium a penalty of 9 million to pay. I just will dig in for some details, more details, and more proof to back up the truth I'm speaking about. It's a sort of testimony I will publish. So it will be in more details than the interviews who are given till now, actually. Yeah, and I know that you know, that's also one of the bonuses of the old powers. They don't care. They don't care. On the moment you start damaging them, they care. But on the moment you keep your word on the contract, not giving names of persons and organizations, you're fine. And you're serving them indirectly because you make people aware. And if they don't choose different, they can say, hey, this idiot Ronald and all the others were telling you on and on and on, because I was not telling anything new. It was already known. Before me were so many other people telling you already the same story. And if we all ignore it, fine, but they will stay in power, and they have the right to stay in power because they can tell all the people on this planet, you knew, but you ignore it. And that's where they're heading for. So indirectly, giving the story, they know a lot of people say, oh, this is Disney, that can be only fantasy. Let's make him the best actor of 2017. Well, I didn't receive the money. I didn't receive the prize for it. No, sometimes the truth is so ugly, we can't believe it because it's not in ourselves. It's not part of you. You're maybe a good, loving person who is not able to kill, let's say, 500,000 children in Iraq, because that was happening. And this lady Albright was telling it in your face on television when they asked her about the 500 million children who were slaughtered in Iraq. We ignored it. And she said it was worth to pay the price. And we ignored it. 500,000 children slaughtered in Iraq. So, who to blame? Maybe we have to stop with blaming each other and looking out of ourselves. Maybe it's time we take our responsibility about life, about our being, to let our inner child out of this world in a peaceful world. Maybe we have to stand up. It's just a hint. Someone was doing this with me, like I point to someone and he said, just turn around your hand. There are 3 fingers in your direction. Start there. And that's the only way. Start with yourself, with your inner world. Make peace with yourself. Come out, come in balance, come in healing. And then the time will come. You are getting powerful and will change this world, because we can. Together we can. Watch the words you're speaking. We are creators. On the moment you start speaking out words, they have the power of creation. So your wish is also a creation for a manifestation who can be done based on the free will of the people worldwide. So then it can become a reality, and it will be a beautiful reality. Please, people of this world, be your own hero. We are all heroes. Forget the program they put on us by birth, and it was done through your loving parents. I hope they were loving parents, but it's all program. Read the protocols of Zion. Start to discover who you really are. We are the creators. We can create whatever we want, but we have to do it together. That's our most powerful part of being aware. So stand up and start doing it. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I was reading his sayings in several scriptures, also out of the Bible. And he made a promise, because he neutralized all the dark forces, and he overcome death. This is why we never will die. And he gave a guarantee that on the moment this world will be destroyed, that no flesh will be safe, he and his army, and that can be UFOs or whatever, I don't want to fill it in, will save us as well. In other words, Jesus was saying that the universe is watching us, and if we are going that crazy that we will, based on free will, full of ignorance, let them fulfill their goal, the goal I had in my first life. If they want to succeed to destroy all life on earth, then still, out of this unconditional love, the being, the creator of heaven and earth, will send his armies to save all life on earth, because earth is a very important planet in this whole manifestation of life creations in frequencies and dimensions. So in the end of the day, and I don't give this positive message like, okay, we can be lazy and doing nothing, because in the end of the day we will be saved. No, that's the ultimate guarantee they gave if it's needed, but then it's not on behavior or on behalf of us, then it's on behalf of all the living beings in this universe and dimensions and frequencies, because if Earth will be destroyed completely, it will give a chain reaction on the rest. So then it's not about us anymore.